All right, all right. Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing? Let us know where you at. We're about to start. Yeah, looks like we are live. Okay, guys. Hello, hello. We have an amazing guest today, right? I'd like to introduce you to Sahar Joseph, who is. Let me read this because there is like a big, a lot of points, right? So, Sahar Joseph, coming from Israel, but living between Israel, New York, Milano, as far as I know. We'll talk more about it, about your international travel, right? Entrepreneur, sales and marketing executive in the global tech industry for more than 10 years, which is amazing. A lot of stuff to talk about as well. And personally closed more than $100 million in B2B deals. Wow, you know. So, guys, today it's all about entrepreneurship, sales, marketing, skills you need to succeed globally. And Sar, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Tanya. Appreciate it very much. Pleasure to meet you all as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, I'd like to start with just a couple of words about you. Like how come you, obviously being a young guy, and how did you end up in tech industry? Like, tell us a little bit about your path. Like, how did you start, and how did you get where you're at right now?
Sure. So my story is actually very unusual, and I'm sure that some people will actually see it as the unusual story it is. I started my journey from a very unfortunate point that happened to me. I was injured in the Israeli military. As you probably know, like in Israel, every male and female have to do the military for 3 years or 2 years if you're a female. And I was in the Israeli Navy and I was injured. I'm coming from a family of military veterans, so that's what I wanted to do. And essentially, it was a very devastating moment for me to, just be injured and be thrown out of the army. In retrospect, it's the best thing that ever happened to me because it allowed me to research what I want to do with my life at a very young age and at a very young point. So I started working in several tech companies in Israel. I started just researching, bought a few books off of Amazon, and tried to connect to the industry that resonated with me the most, right? So I started working at Microsoft Israel at a very young age, where my friends were just finishing up their post-army trip in South America. And then from there, I got to more and more positions, but I can definitely share more about that, but I'll let you kind of take it away, Tanya.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about, because obviously, tech industry. Can you actually explain to us, not tech savvy people, what does it mean to work in the tech industry? Like, what do you deal with on day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so it's interesting because it's an organization like any other organization, right? But deals with a different end product to sell. Like any other organization, a tech organization will be composed of several departments, right? So we'll have the sales department, the marketing department, the product department, the technical departments, that each department obviously have an end goal to be connected as a whole organization to a final product that you would need to sell and like provide a service to your customers. And essentially, like every other organization, whether it's the construction industry or any electrical industry or whatever else, or selling furniture, there are moving parts that work together for a combined goal. So as you specifically know, Tanya, but I'm sure a lot of other people know as well, the tech industry in Tel Aviv and Israel is like, it's a trade like in, I don't know, like in some other countries, like Italians love Italian food and they know how to make pizza and pasta, and Italians love fashion and their main trade is fashion. In Israel, it's technology because we have the army and we have a lot of other kind of things that happen in the country that allows us to operate with technology. So a lot of very young professionals in Israel start their career very early on learning about technology. So that's what I did, and this is why it was so natural to me to be drawn into the tech industry. And I was selling software from my first positions, and that's what I do until this day, actually.
Wow, amazing. So I know in your resume, like based on your resume, that you actually worked in Dropbox, which is like an international company for many years. And I also picked up something like you were one of the people who actually were in a founding office in Israel. Could you tell us a little bit how it went and how did you end up having this position, and what kind of things could you contribute into the growth on Middle East in this company?
For sure. So with Dropbox, it was very interesting. A recruiter for Dropbox actually reached out to me on LinkedIn randomly. I was working in several startups, and I was working at Microsoft and then in another startup here in Israel. And then a recruiter for Dropbox just reached out to me on LinkedIn, saying they're basically starting their Israeli office. I mean, Dropbox was active in Israel, but not on the B2B department. So essentially, a lot of people, like you probably know, Dropbox is a file hosting and sharing solution. So you as an individual can share, like upload your photos there and like any other assets, media, videos, and share it and collaborate on these files. And then essentially, like there were no B2B activity in Israel or the Middle East, but they did have it like a very strong activity and footprint in the US and Europe. So they wanted to start this B2B, which is business to business, meaning selling this software of Dropbox to businesses and not just individuals. And they reached out to me because they saw that I have some experience in that field. And I was like, sure, I would love to, take this interview. I started in the company basically as one of the first employees of Dropbox in the Middle East region. And we built this organization from zero to my department eventually was responsible for 1% of Dropbox's global revenue, which sounds like a little, but they're making a few billions in revenue. So it was an impact. So I started in Israel. We grew. We started working with a lot of the startups here in Israel, selling Dropbox to these startups to collaborate internally on their teams and externally with their customers. And from there, we grew. My team grew to the Middle East. I started working in Dubai, the UAE. Some of Saudi Arabia's customers were under my management as well, Central and Eastern Europe, and then we grew to many other regions. Dropbox also acquired a company called HelloSign, which is very similar to, it's competing with DocuSign, but very similar product. And I was also responsible of selling that product in those regions.
Wow, nice, nice. So tell us what's going on now, because every time I, come check in with you on your social media, you're somewhere else, either New York, Milano, or Tel Aviv. I'm like, wow, that's an interesting life. So what's going on right now in your life? And then I have some very nice questions for you. How, we'll get there.
Of course, would love it. So yeah, I mean, there's some advantages and disadvantages to the life of tech sales, right? So essentially my purpose, I would say like main mission in every company I work with is to convince or basically, showcase the product of the company to another company, right? And sell it. And some of these sales processes are very long. So they could take between 3 to 9 months or even one, or like my biggest deal that was closed so far in my career took almost 2 years to finalize from the moment of conception until closure. So these are very, very long cycles that are very complex and involve a lot of different stakeholders from many different departments of the organization that I'm selling to, right? And essentially, the advantage of it is that you get to travel to these places. I mean, advantage, some people will call this also a disadvantage, because at a typical point, I was traveling for almost every week from different places, from Milan to New York, to Canada, back to Israel, Milan again, Spain, UK, and it's like crazy. But essentially that's what I was doing in the last couple of years is selling software to the fashion industry, and that's why I also had the pleasure to live in Milan for 2.5 years. And I worked for a company that sold a specific solution for the e-commerce. So like basically the website where these fashion brands sell their products. So the software basically accelerated and increased the revenue and growth of these companies by showing you the product that you are most likely to engage with. So I lived in Milan selling the software, collaborating with Gucci, Valentino, Balenciaga, Bottega, Louis Vuitton, and many other brands, which was quite an experience. I fell in love with Italian food, with Italian wine, with the culture. It was beautiful. And then essentially I created a very large network there. And I know that Tanya also, like you have the importance of the language is something really interesting, because during that process, I also decided that I want to learn Italian, and I'm still working on it because I saw that it's really important for my communication and collaboration with other people. And now I'm doing it with several different softwares. I'm helping a lot of global clients get and reach to Italian customers around the world. That's what I basically do.
Oh, wow, nice, nice. Well, very, very good that you went into languages. Let's talk about that. So your English is quite good. You know, it's actually amazing. Like, obviously, your communication skills, you definitely can, you know, work anywhere in the world with this English level. So tell us a little bit, because since my audience are interested in specifically that, what do you found important in acquiring this kind of language skill, and how important is that for you right now?
I think that that's a very good question. My English was actually super critical for me working with American customers, because specifically in America, I mean, obviously around the world, but specifically when I sold to American clients, I'm always getting the same reactions, like, wow, like when they found out I'm not American, it's like, I thought you live in America, or like, I thought you grew up in America, or like went to an American university. And I'm like, no, actually, you know, I just speak English for many years and work in this field. So this is how I polished my English. So I think specifically working in the US, you know, it just puts you on a different level. Also, like, not only having the accent, but understanding everything, because the basis of every language is, you know, communication and understanding, right? And essentially, I think that was the main thing that put me on a different level. While, you know, for example, reading a contract or being on a Zoom call like this and getting you know, like a counter offer from a customer, it's like, you need to be very focused, of course, but if you don't know some of the words that the customer mentioned, specifically like on a business language, or like sometimes it's also legal language, sometimes it's just, you know, idioms in English, like let's get our ducks in a row, like Americans like to say sometimes. And if you don't understand that, it's like, okay, like what did he say again? And you have to go back to the recording, and it's like, for me, it makes you a little less sharp. And in my line of work, you have to be very sharp to be successful. So I think the language was a really significant part of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It does make sense, and I totally agree with you. So what kind of maybe successful actions or tricks? You mentioned re-listening to your recordings. Did you just say that? Because that's exactly like what I would have done if I were in a similar situation. But what else did you do to actually not, you know, shy away from difficulties? Or like, oh my God, I didn't understand, I don't know what to do. But actually, you know, use whatever happens in a communication to excel yourself forward.
Interesting. So I think one thing that kind of differentiated me personally from other people that I saw in my environment that were learning English, I wasn't afraid to ask. I wasn't afraid to, you know, like, you know, looked at in a bad way by asking, what was that word? So, you know, sometimes you will sit in a social setting, or like in a restaurant or in a meeting, and, you know, like someone will say this crazy bombarded word that it will be like, what? Sorry. And, you know, just like, you have two options: either play it like you understood it and try to, you know, like kind of mitigate it in the conversation, or ask, yeah, I understood what you said before, but can you just clarify that word for me? And most of the people will actually take it, from my experience, most of the people will actually take it with respect, that you want to understand them better, and you're not just trying to make it look like you understood them. So that was like one personal trick that I'm always using. And I'm not, you know, till this day, English is such a huge language. The vocabulary is so immense and almost infinite. It feels like you're learning a new language every day. I'm sure that you know, do you understand that? So till this day, when I hear a word that I don't understand, 99% of the times I will ask it if I got it right. And I think that's one thing. Personally, I loved video games from a very young age. So I also, it was a dual thing for me, because I learned English in video games when I had zero English, literally. And I also met people around the world, which was like two things that were very important to me. So I played some video games. I got to know people from other places and saw the words and started repeating these words. And that was like the first initial English study for me.
Love it, love it. Thank you so much. I'm sure this was quite some inspiration for other people, because I mean that's brings me to that actually brings me to the next question, because you in your line of work you have to deal with different cultures. So you already mentioned, yeah, Americans, obviously, Italians. Do you have any other nationalities?
Yeah, I had a lot of business in Japan and still do, which are I actually wrote an article in it. Unfortunately, it's in Hebrew, but I can send it over to you and translate it. But yeah, it's like to one of the Israeli news outlets that is actually global, but it's Hebrew. But yeah, so I wrote an article on the importance of understanding cultures in technical sales around the world, and it's for me, it's one of the most interesting things in the world, because you can take an example of putting your elbows on the table in a meeting with an Italian customer. With some of them, it could be considered as rude as lowering your voice in a restaurant, right? So there are typical things in the culture that could be considered very rude, and you cannot know them until you just start communicating with these people, right? So, for example, in Japan, I don't know, like one of the most important things for us as salespeople in the tech industry is the social tool called LinkedIn. So there is a really common strategy of reaching out to people on LinkedIn, and we also call it this action is called outreach, right? So you will reach out to people who are relevant for your line of work in order to sell them your product or interest them in your service. And this outreach is very common. Like when you will send this LinkedIn message to someone in America, they will be like, okay, it's interesting, it's not interesting. My experience with Japanese clients were they were not even looking at my messages, they were not even responding, they were not even reading my messages, because they don't like to speak English, and they don't like to speak with people in general, right? They don't like to speak with people who do not speak their language. So, I use ChatGPT and a lot of other tools to translate my message to Japanese, and it also didn't work. So I realized that I obviously researched and asked my friends who were selling to the Japanese market when I was trying to penetrate the Japanese market. I asked my friends, like, how do you do it? Like, how do you sell to these amazing Japanese big clients? And they were like, listen, man, like, it doesn't work. Like, you cannot just reach out to them directly. In the Japanese culture, it's accepted for a friend or someone who knows them to introduce you. Like, introduction is a very common tradition in Japan, right? So I found friends in Japan, and I flew to Japan, and I found people that are able to introduce me to the clients that I wanted. And this way I was able to close a deal with Yahoo Japan, which is like Google in Japan right now. And yeah, through partners, basically.
Wow, very nice. So how do you usually research these things? Like just through communication, or like what other tools would you use?
So honestly, I'm a sucker for LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is one of the most powerful tools of our century, right? And I think you can just literally research any company you want, any individual persona you want to communicate with. Another very strong tool is conferences and events. So I go almost every month. I will go to a conference, whether it's in the US or in Europe or in Israel, and just communicate with people, and just help share knowledge, get help back. And I think knowledge sharing is a very common trade in our line of work in the tech industry. And yeah, I mean, obviously read. I'm not reading a lot of books, but I try to read as much as I can when I get a good recommendation. And some of these books, like I've read a book recently by the founder of Waze, was also an Israeli, called Uri Levin. He speaks a lot about fundraising and also like sales. So I got a lot of incredible knowledge and information from that specific book, and I try to also read as much as I can.
Nice, nice. As I always say to my
for the language as well. Sorry. Yeah.
what's that? Say again?
No, I'm saying I think that it also, like, obviously for language, I didn't specifically read books to improve my English, but I'm trying to do so with my Italian now, and I'll let you know how it goes. But yeah, I think it could be a very, very important tool for you to improve language as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say to my clients, like, you cannot learn a language without actually learning the culture. Like, those things go hand in hand 100%. Like some things which are okay for Americans, not going to be okay for Israelis, and not going to be okay for Japanese or for Russians or for whoever. Like, yes, English is kind of like a common denominator. You can communicate if you speak it, but the culture and like traditions and whatever is, you know, considered to be acceptable is like a line, you know, like how actually other people will be ready to be communicating with you. Would you agree?
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's like in this article that I wrote, I was talking on Italians and Japanese, and the third culture that I had a lot of experience with was Americans. And I started to see in several Zoom calls and conversations that I've had with Americans, whether it's in person or over Zoom, that some of them like me and some of them don't. And I was trying to put the finger on why is it? And when re-listening to my calls, I saw that almost in 90% of the cases where I was not focusing on small talk for like at least 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning of every conversation, people just in the end of the day did not respect me as they would when I actually were interested and genuinely curious about them and just a random conversation. Because like Israelis are very straightforward to people that know, and we like to get to the chase and cut to the chase very fast. And I was used to like, okay, cool, so what's your name? Okay, John, perfect, let me show you what we're selling here, to like what we're doing here today. And it wasn't working with Americans. Like you have to focus on also being genuinely curious about them and their life and the recent sport events, and how was your weekend, but not just as a question, but really like let's have a conversation about it. So yeah, it's an interesting cultural difference. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So if I came to you and say, hey, Sahar, could you coach me on dealing with Americans? What are 3 tips you would give me before I went into a deal?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So depending what industry you're selling to or like who do you want to collaborate with, but definitely start watching football and baseball to be up to date with the current sport events. It also really depends in what industry, but in my industry, wine and dine is something that is really accepted, right? So like you take someone, especially like very senior people in very large organizations, take them out to a restaurant, not just for the sake of dining with them, but this is a way to formulate a bond, right, and create a relationship, which is the most important thing. And that brings me to the third thing: be genuinely curious. Don't try to ask questions just because you have to and you think that's the right thing to do, but really come to the event, come to this specific occasion with the intention and the purpose to create a relationship. If you don't do that, I think like it wouldn't work, because this is, and it's not only with the American culture, it's very similar in Italian culture and Israeli culture as well. Yeah, but with Americans specifically, I've seen that a lot of my success came from the point of meeting again and again and focusing on creating a relationship.
Wow, love it, love it. That's actually very nice advice. Just to basically, what's important as I see it is like you observe, like you were acting very intelligently. Like, okay, somebody likes me, somebody doesn't like me. Why is that? And you kind of like went back and looked at it and figured out the solution, which is, I think, very smart thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, you can take life as a series of occurrences, right? You can say, yeah, this guy just didn't like me. But I kind of disagree. Like, I think that there is a reason behind it, and there is a technology and a technique to be cause over it and actually create, like a process that can work every time. Obviously, you're not gonna make it with 100% of the people, like some people don't like me and I don't like some people. It's totally fine, but there is a way to create a relationship in a way that will be very like light and natural. And it's like it does include following I would say, like basically following the cultural aspects of every culture. That's
Right. Yeah, amazing. So a lot of my clients, they actually learn English because they want to go on international market. Let's say it could be sales, it could be marketing, it could be just acquiring more clients online. It can be anything, or going overseas and opening an office. Bringing the product overseas. So I'd like to talk to you about skill set. you know, like you obviously, like sales and marketing is the area, especially in tech, like you have to be very skilled and you have to sharpen your skills all the time. Like from what you're seeing right now in the marketplace, like what's expected, like what skills do you actually need to have to come out there and present your product and, you know, be prosperous, be successful on an international market?
Yeah, of course. That's a really important question because, you know, with the development of AI tools, artificial intelligence, and like, you know, generative AI specifically, I can tell you that there is a lot of conversations happening around me and in conferences and with clients that I know in the global markets on like how are jobs going to be impacted and who is going to survive and like what's going to happen and all of this kind of apocalyptic questions, right? But essentially, in my opinion, and from the people, I'm not an AI expert. I'm selling AI. I know a lot about AI from the point of, you know, presenting the solution and using the most current AI tools. But I collaborate with people that work in my company and other companies that are completely AI developers and experts that work with AI for 25 years. So from those conversations, some of the assumptions that were communicated to me and that I understood as well are you can like the people who are going to make it and the professionals who are going to keep themselves up like above of the noise, right, are people who are going to be able to utilize AI not just for the sake of using it, but really like understand the technology and really like there is this thing called prompting. I don't know if you know this definition, but when you
It's
talk
like
to
it's inquiries basically, like what kind of questions you ask, right?
basically,
Yeah.
right. So essentially, when you talk to ChatGPT, it's called the prompt, right? Like you are creating this inquiry, exactly like you're saying. So, you know, a lot of the people, like a marketer, also like a head of marketing of someone who's doing demand generation for a company, is going to become a prompt marketer, right? Like is going to probably they are going to use in the future a lot of technologies to extract a lot of value from the AI in order to make the biggest impact based on data, right? So you need to be a professional in prompting, in my opinion, and know how to extract the best decisions and the best assumptions and the best data from AI tools that are going to just become better and better and better in the next 5 to 10 years.
Wow. So this is obviously one of the skills. Like, doesn't matter what you do, you have to master AI. You know, first, I would say first start from your professional area. You know, like for, I mean, personal use, fine. You know, you can ask, play with it as much as you want. But I mean, what I recommend to my clients as well, you probably would agree with that, to start seeing how actually ChatGPT, the new version, can actually help you in your job. How it can help, you know, help you become more efficient. Because
Yes,
for me, I mean, it's done an incredible job. I mean, it's definitely like made me more efficient, 100%. Yeah.
I can imagine. And also, by the way, I can tell you specifically that I use AI tools to learn Italian as well. Like my Italian, I would say, is in a basic level. So you can combine it with other things that you do in your life. Like, you know, I'm paying an Italian tutor to learn Italian. I'm using Duolingo. I'm using ChatGPT. I'm talking with my friends in Italian. It's like it's a multi level kind of learning, right? You cannot learn just by doing one thing. There's like, I'm sure that you cover that also in some of your courses, that you need to like you know, flow your life and overflow your life with the language as much as you can, which includes like also watching something on Netflix and like everything together. But yeah, I would say the people, the skill set that I'm focused on specifically in my life for the next few years is mastering AI and understanding it for real.
Wow, I love it. That's what I keep hearing, you know, from very, very successful people. I mean, again, from you, not an exception. Again, from not just tech people, actually, you know, people from different areas of life. And that's the idea I really like, you know, like AI is not going to substitute people who actually master the AI, because this is for our use, you know, that's the basic of it, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, good. So there are certain things which obviously AI cannot substitute, right? So let's talk about these kind of skills. So one of the skills I see, what you're focusing on is understanding AI, how you can utilize AI to, you know, more to be more successful, to see more opportunities? What are the skills you keep working on?
Always just staying up to date on, like the knowledge base in my, in my vertical or in my industry. So specifically, like I'm selling to a lot of, I'm collaborating and selling to a lot of fashion brands currently. So, like a few years back when I was working at Dropbox, I didn't even know what Gucci was. Like it was like a random word for me, right? Like I was wearing flip-flops and a t-shirt, in the hot sun of Tel Aviv, working here in the Middle East. So I didn't even know anything about it. But when I moved to Milan and had the opportunity to work in the company to sell to the fashion industry, I had to learn, like who are the most upcoming brands, who are the artistic directors, the designers in each company, what director moved from this brand to that other brand, and very superficial things as well, like, like what restaurants people like to go to in order for me to, like wine and dine them, or also to, like to meet people in these events or restaurants or places. So I think just keeping yourself in the loop, right? And being in the right rooms, talking to the right audiences. I would say not even as like we're talking a lot about like business oriented positions, but even in a technical position, right? Like I have a lot of friends in America, for example, that are software developers. And if I'm looking specifically on like the highest earning software developers that I know, they are the people who know how, obviously they're very professional in what they do and they know the software languages and stuff like that. But the main differentiator is that they know how to network, because you're not going to stay in the same position forever. You're not going to have the same business forever. And even if you're a software developer, like you can know people that can present you to better opportunities and can broaden your horizons and can open your eyes to many different other things. And I think networking, if I can take it as one word, whether it's digitally, physically, just staying up to date and invest in it, really invest in your network, because, it sounds like a cliche. There's a saying that goes, your network is your net worth. And essentially, I think it's really right, true, and important to keep your network and grow it as you can.
Wow, I love this subject because again, like the reason people learn languages is to actually network. I mean, it's a bottom line. It's either for business or for yourself or for your personal life, but it's still networking, right? So what would be your top 3 advice to be successful in networking?
Wow, that's actually a very difficult subject, because I personally work with a lot of my salespeople and other people in the industry on this subject, because networking is I would say a skill that is full of barriers, right? Because in order to network with somebody, you first of all, you need to decide and agree and come to peace with the fact that you need to approach a person, right? A person that you don't know, because you're not networking with people you already know. You can, but for the purpose of them introducing you to other people or strengthen the relationship with them that you already have and furtherly bond. But essentially, in order to network, in like the first act of networking is to agree that you're going to approach another person that you don't know. And that could be very difficult to some people. There is no better advice from me than the 3-2-1 rule, which basically when you want to do it, you just say 3, 2, 1, and you jump to it. That's the best advice that I can give, honestly. Because even after a decade of networking, sometimes you see people that are inside the conversation and you don't want to disturb them, but you know that you want to talk to this guy. And if you're not going to jump on him now, he's probably going to, just carry around for 10 other conversations and you might lose the individual. So the 3-2-1 rule is the best. That's like my best advice.
I'm not to interrupt you, but that's definitely gonna it's a good moment to say that. One of my friends says all it takes is a 20 seconds of courage. This is very close to 1-2-3 rule. I like it.
Absolutely. It's so true. Like essentially you just need to put yourself in the mix, like put yourself in the occasion, in the event, and then from there, whatever happens, you already started, right? Like it's obviously like you need to be intelligent, and you can blow it even after being introduced to the person, but it's better than just not doing anything, right? That's my opinion. If you can say like top three things, I would say the second thing would be to know how to also say no to some things, right? Because there is a lot of noise in the industry. And I can tell you, I just came back from New York about a week ago. I was in New York for 2.5 weeks for Tech Week. So every year around the summer, like May and June, there is a Tech Week in New York, which is a series of 500 events that happen on a course of 2 weeks. So, it's very confusing. You see a list of 500 events. Every event have a very similar title, right? And how do you choose what to go to, right? So, and you get a lot of invitations, and when you know people, they invite you to this party and to this drink and to this rooftop and blah, blah, blah. So I think one of the most important thing in my networking aspect is to choose the right rooms, right? Like know what to say no to, because you will have a lot of opportunities and you will need to choose the right things to focus you on the goal that you are pursuing at this moment, at this year, at this, like company that you're running or this position that you have. So that's definitely my second aspect, like know how to also like kind of filter what you're going through.
Right. Yeah, I love it. Mm-hmm.
And the third thing, which honestly like is one of the most important things. I wouldn't say the most important because the other things I said are also important, but keep yourself organized, because while networking, that's another kind of learning that I've had from this most recent New York trip. I attended maybe out of this 500, I think I attended 50 or 60 events, and every event you meet 20 people or 30 or 50 or whatever, like depending how much you're spending there, how much time you're spending there. And with some of these people, you have action items, you have like next steps and follow-ups that you need to do. So if you don't note down everything, and if you're not very meticulously organized on every specific next step and action item that you have with this person, things can just fall between the cracks, right? So you don't want to lose opportunities by not being organized enough. So whether you do it with someone who helps you, like an executive assistant, or by yourself, or you can also use AI tools for that. There are incredible AI tools for voice notes today. So you can record, like you met a person, you talk for 5 minutes, you can record a 30-second audio voice note to one of these AI tools. I can send you a couple of them if you want, for people to use them. And it basically sends you a description of your next steps to remind you who was the person, because sometimes when you meet 50 people in one event, you never remember all of them, as much as it's hard to say. So yeah, and it just gives you the action items and reminds you what to do. So that's also very important, keeping yourself organized.
Yeah, well, love it. So all these 3 steps are definitely actionable. So what I would add as well is like, it is maybe probably even a 0 step. Like you have to know what you're looking for before you actually go into any networking cycle. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that connects to my know how to say no to. It's definitely in that same process, because when you look at a lot of noise and a lot of confusion sometimes that there is in every industry, you need to know what you're looking for and set a goal and a purpose. So I completely agree with you.
Nice. So let me go back to the technology, AI, this whole area. Obviously, this is where the space is going. It doesn't matter anymore if you're tech savvy or not tech savvy. Like it's gonna be concerning you, right? Like any individual on earth. So what your advice would be for people who are just starting to understand what this actually can give them? Like what kind of action steps? If there is literally nothing, they just know, okay, there is AI, there's ChatGPT, that's all they know.
Yeah.
How can they start benefiting from this?
Yeah, this definitely connects to what we've just said, also of knowing what you're looking for, because as there is noise also in the networking universe, there is a lot of noise in the knowledge base universe, right? And there are so many knowledge sources. And I think the step 0, as you just said before, is understanding what is the most comfortable way for you to consume knowledge and consume information. I can tell you that for me specifically, growing up from a very young age with a tool like YouTube, which is an incredible tool for learning anything, right? I kind of trained myself to learn things from YouTube, like from playing the guitar to, like also enhancing language skills and gaming. I was always just like following a lot of YouTube videos on strengthening my new skills. So with AI, it's kind of different. I mean, there are a lot of YouTube tutorials on how to use ChatGPT, but there are also like more professional knowledge bases. You can get a ChatGPT or like an AI very basic AI course on LinkedIn, on Udemy, on Coursera. Like on this formal courses, you can reach out to an AI expert and have a chat via LinkedIn or any other kind of source if that's what you want to do. You can find, this is something that we didn't really cover in networking, but people really underestimate sometimes the power of their personal network with their friends and family. So usually, not every individual will have it, but I am sure that if anybody that is listening to this conversation now will really look in his close network without talking about people that you don't know or that are not even friends of your friends, just look at your own core family and close friends environment. I'm sure you can get to someone who can be valuable for you for what you're looking for right now, right? Just from your very close network without going to events and reaching out to people on LinkedIn. So I would say the first step is like understanding really like what is the best way for you to consume knowledge and information. And then the hard part, at least for me, I don't know, maybe other people here, it's easier for them, is really set a goal and a target that is repeatable. So daily, weekly, monthly, but you are doing something about this purpose for like every week or every day or every 2 days or every month. Because just this repeatable training is the only thing that can help our mind get used to a habit, right? Like, because we are in the business of habit forming. So with AI, it's also like understanding this new subject that has so many different like sub-subjects. You need to be very persistent. And that's what I think.
Yeah, it's not like 1 day, 1 weekend thing. That's what you're saying, basically.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, absolutely. Like everything new, everything which is difficult now will be easy if you actually spend time on this to devote time to understand, for sure. Okay, Sahar, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, if like we spoke a lot about business related stuff, skills you need and how your job can be dependent on AI and things like that. So one of my last questions I'd like to ask you is actually it's a question I ask every guest on my interview. Because we're creating all these different aspects of our lives, right? One of the purposes is actually to be happy. A lot of people just trying to be happy, right? So how do you personally define happiness for yourself?
Wow. Oh, that's a very philosophical question. For me, after I've learned a lot of things on the subject of happiness, and I completely agree with you that it's the if not the main, but one of the main purposes of every individual that lives on this planet, right? I have in my industry, in sales, you can, in tech sales specifically, you can be introduced to a lot of happiness, but it involves a lot of challenges and a lot of sadness throughout the way, or however you call it, like overcoming this intense challenges. So I can tell you that the happiest moments of my life were actually occurring while overcoming these barriers of a huge deal. So I can tell you that even in situations that I was working for 2 years to close a deal, and every 3 months there is like a quarterly problem or a crazy thing that happens that makes you think, no, now the deal is tanked and it's not going to happen, and there was a change of management, and they just don't want to talk to you anymore, and there is a recession, and they don't have budget, and like literally every month, every quarter, something like that happens, and it really brings you down. Like it's very demotivating. And for me, the moments that I was the happiest I have been in my entire life is moments when I was like, listen, Sal, just don't don't give up. It's like, it sounds like a cliche, but why do you care? Just put 1 more day of effort on this deal, 1 more week of effort on this deal, 1 more month of effort on this deal. And then if it doesn't work, let's see then. But just today, don't give up. And the moments of happiness for me came when I overcome these barriers after thinking that it's destroyed forever, and that it actually worked, and they actually closed the deal, and I actually got what I want. And these were for me the moments of greatest happiness.
Wow, that's a very nice way to to put it. I love it. And obviously, like, let me ask you an additional question here, because I mean, a lot of people also in your industry, and I mean, when I was reading your bio, like, you had an experience of closing, huge deals, like a lot of money involved, and I can imagine like some of the deals they can be such a win that you're like, okay, I don't need to work anymore for like, I don't know, the next 2 years, whatever. So what keeps you going? Like, why would you put another game in front of yourself? Like, what is the motivation behind it? Because so many people would just kind of rest on their laurels, like, oh, I'm good, I invested here and invested there, and I'm cool. So why do you keep going?
That's a really, really good question. I think that I completely agree with you. Like at a certain point, after you close a very big deal, the first thing you want to do is party. That's the first natural thing to do. Like we closed this huge deal, $10 million. Like I was working on it for a year and a half. And now the only natural thing to do is enjoy the win, right? Which is totally fine. And I think enjoying the win is something really important for you. Like if you don't acknowledge yourself for the hard work you put in, why did you even do it, right? But in terms of keeping and going, I think that the best competition you can have in your entire life is with yourself. Like in my industry, there's also a lot of competition. A lot of companies are using AI to do basically the same things, right? Which is sometimes a bit ridiculous. And essentially, you can compete with your competitors. You can even compete sometimes with your partners, which can be a bit weird. But the best competition you can have in your entire life is the competition with yourself. And I can tell you that there was a moment in Dropbox that I felt exactly what you were just describing, that, okay, why do I need to just continue now? It's like, it's so incredible. My team works by itself. It's very autonomous. I just need to check up on them. If I'm not here for the next month, business is still booming. We're still making a lot of money. It's still amazing. So why do I need to work? But I tried it and I took a vacation for 2 weeks and I saw what happened. I was really bored. So like, why? Like I felt like I'm starting to deteriorate. So why would you do it? And this is the moment that I understood. If you don't set yourself higher goals all the time, you will only go down. So I'm sure people in the audience and you know people who are very wealthy, and you can know people who their life are already like fully taken care of and organized. But you will see that if these people are not very productive, they will have zero morale. Like for me, definitely production is the basis of really having real passion for life and morale. And you have to stay productive all the time. And if you are productive just for the sake of being productive and not creating a game that is big enough for you, it will just be a small game and you feel like you're lying to yourself. So for me, what keeps me going is understanding that there is always a bigger goal, and the best competition that I can have is with myself. And this is what just basically keeps me up a day and night.
Wow, the only thing I'd like to say, keep preaching, keep preaching. I love it. This is amazing. No, this is so good. This is so good. Yeah, yeah. That's absolutely like 100% motivating, because that's basically, I think it's the difference between successful people and people who actually go down. You're either succeeding and you continue succeeding, or you deteriorating, like you said. So amazing. Well done. That sounds really, really good. I have a question. I have a
For you
question.
too, Tanya, by the way.
What's
For you,
that?
for you too. Very well done for everything that you're doing. It's very inspiring.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And Liran and I were happy to have you in our environment, and this is amazing. Speaking of networking, this is how you go out, because I mean, we were just discussing the other day like how important the environment is. Because I mean, if your friends, your family, people you are associating with are going up and actually striving for more, there is no way for you to actually stay on the same level. No way. Because this is how you're gonna think. You're like, oh my god, it doesn't matter where you're at. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I actually need to keep up. You know?
Oh, interesting. You know, like I just recently got from a friend of mine this really interesting, like Instagram reel, you know, that we send with some people who have a relationship, with some people who have a real relationship of reels, you know, this one. So I just got a reel from a friend of mine saying that you are the combination of the 5 people you spend time with the most. And it's so interesting. And this is why you have to keep yourself in an environment of people who are like, that you will feel you are the smallest fish in this tank, right? So like you can always, you know, like reach higher, better goals. And, you know, as much as you want to also feel good about yourself, nothing will motivate you if you feel like you're the biggest, the big shot and the best individual that exists. You know, like you will have to surround yourself with people who inspire you and that are better than you in other stuff, right?
Yes, Sahar. So thank you so much for inspiring myself included and our audience. It's been amazing. I have a couple more questions from the chat for you, if you don't mind. one of one of them, Yulia, is actually asking about time management because looks like you have a lot of going on. And Yulia says she personally has an issue with managing her time. You know, doesn't matter how much she writes on her agenda what to do, she still is missing on things. So couple of things, pieces of advice you'd like to give on time management, being a busy person.
Absolutely. So, by the way, Julia, same for me. I can tell you that's one of the most challenging things. You're not alone. Managing your time, and you always have new opportunities, and you don't know where to fit them. I personally just, I can tell you, like I jumped beyond what I could do, and I hired a part-time executive assistant because I literally couldn't manage everything that I was doing. And that basically brought me to the point that, you know, like more things were more organized for me and my agenda was very much easier to clear it up. So that brought me to definitely a different level. But there are a lot of things you can do without, you know, spending money or like hiring even a part-time executive assistant. And it's really a method of prioritization. Like I can tell you that, I mean, there are two things. Prioritization, obviously, it's very easy. You feel, you know what are the most important things, but you need to be very ethical to say, okay, I know, ethical with yourself and like very strict. I know these are the things that I'm going to do today. What are the top 3 things that are most important? That's very easy to say. But the harder thing to say is exactly like I said before about networking, what am I saying no to, right? I am a very social person. I'm a socialite, and I would love like if someone just called me right now and said, "Let's go have a lunch. I have a meeting in like 10 minutes from now." You know, I would really think about it. Like, should I push this meeting and like meet with this individual that just came from abroad? You know, like obviously you want to do it, but you need to be very persistent with yourself if you have a goal in front of you, and you know, just know what to say no to. This, for me personally, really helped me to, you know, go on the next level on specific time management. And you know, like prioritization also not always goes to what you like, right? Sometimes the most important tasks of the day are the tasks that you really don't want to do right now. And if you don't do them right now, you will keep it to the end of the day, and you know they will be pushed for tomorrow. So I actually created a game with myself that every day I'm looking for the tasks that are the most annoying tasks of the day. If there are 3 or 4 tasks, and I will complete them first before everything else. So that's a personal game I have with myself. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's stupid, but you know, it just helped me to overcome time management.
I think this is brilliant advice. It's basically prioritize and do the most difficult things right away. Like don't put it off for tomorrow or for the evening. It's like actually eat that frog, which is
Exactly.
yeah, famous Brian Tracy's line, you know, which
Yeah.
is actually makes total sense. I agree with you. Okay, sorry, amazing. So last question is you mentioned, and it's for sure going to be last question. I know you have a meeting, so we'll be wrapping up shortly. So you mentioned that happiness is actually for you when you overcome, you know, like huge barriers, you know, on the way to your target, on your goal. So what actually helps you to, because that's what you already mentioned, like you actually have this inner dialogue saying, hey, another week, you know, another day, just don't give up. But what else, like what kind of attitude or whatever you're doing, it actually helps you to persist. Because I think, my personal opinion is, one of the common denominators of successful people is persistence. Like, all of them are persistent, 100%. And that's where most of the people fail, because they just give up too early, unfortunately. So what do you, a piece of advice would be for people to be more persistent?
I can tell you what works for me. Maybe it's not going to work for all people, but I'm actually doing it from a very young age, and it has like a personal story to it. At a very young age, I was addicted to Coke Zero and Diet Coke. Like from like the age of like 9 or 10. You can send the complaints to my mother if you want. But yeah, essentially, I was like, I love this drink. I was just drinking like 3 or 4 bottles a day, and I didn't really care. It was just like amazing for me. And at a certain point, my mom like really like told me, listen, you have to stop drinking this. It's like not healthy, right? And I mean, it's like in moderation. Like I was drinking like 3 or 4 bottles a day, and I had a game with myself that I always like to do. And today I will call this game social proof or something like that. But I basically told everyone around me that I stopped drinking Diet Coke, and without really stopping to drink Diet Coke. But the effect that it created is that every time I was in a social place and there was Diet Coke that I really wanted to drink, I couldn't do it because people know I stopped. And I didn't want people to come to me and say, come on, man, you said you stopped that with Diet Coke. So what's happening, right? So I do the same thing with my goals, right? Like what keeps me persistent. If I know, for example, right now that I have this deal that I need to close that requires me, to organize my day or organize my month to be 3 times in Italy. So I start saying to people like, this month I'm gonna fly to Italy on this date and that date and this date before I even booked it, right? I create it before it's even real, and that helps my environment to apply this pressure on me because I already told them. And like I don't know if it will work for everybody, but for me, like I can say I'm moving, for example, I'm moving to New York, right? If I want to, and I'm starting to say to all of my friends and all of my colleagues, people will start imagining it, seeing it, and eventually it will become a reality. So that's my best game that I play with myself and with the environment.
Wow, Sahar, you just revealed one of my secrets as well. I can totally
You really
relate.
do it as well. I love it. It's amazing.
It's 100%. I'm going to tell my personal story. Remember the time when these iPhones came out, which was a big deal. Like they were super expensive. I mean, it's just like super attractive. And I was living in Moscow at that time, and I was like, I didn't have like a high paid job, whatever, but I really, really wanted this iPhone. I'm like, yeah, and I just started doing the same thing. I'm like, guys, I'm getting the iPhone. I'm actually going, I'm choosing what model I want. I totally made it up. I faked it 100%. But you know what happened the next week? There, I don't even remember the circumstance, but whatever. But I had a birthday, and I just got this as a present because a group of friends got together with my family, and they just gave me it as a present, which was
Wow.
wow. It just
Oh, I
happened.
love it.
So and then again, this was like when it happened first. I'm like, okay, fine, this works. So I just started to, and I figured out something very simple. First, you create it in your mind. It's very simple. Then you get other people to agree with you, and it creates a social pressure. You're like, okay, I'm doing it. So,
Exactly. Wow, it's crazy that you have it as well. I thought that I'm crazy with this game. I don't know, but apparently, like people
no,
think alike sometimes. I love it.
I think you were brave enough to say this. So I just and I confirm, yeah, this is exactly what's happening. And I think
Amazing.
it takes some courage. A lot of people don't have courage enough to actually say about this. They're like, oh, I'm not gonna say, because this is like, what if it's not gonna work? What I'm gonna do? I'm not gonna feel well, whatever. But it's a certain level of probably self-esteem and self-confidence, and believe in yourself, which is okay, I'm gonna make it anyway, and this is what I want. And you're just being, honest with yourself, with your environment, and you go for it. So
Absolutely. And don't even rely on your plan B on what happens if it doesn't work. Just focus on plan one. Plan B will come. All good. You know what I mean?
Exactly, exactly. Wow, Sahar, that has been amazing. Thank you so much. I always say to my audience that first of all, I'm doing this interviews for me, because I'm so much enjoying, to have these answers and and the questions I'm also crafting, something I could benefit myself, something we could, the ideas we could exchange. And this always works, like we can, so, in this kind of conversations, my audience can see, what they can apply right away. So thank you so much from me personally, and from my group out there. And we will make sure we'll post your links. Would you like me to do LinkedIn? Something else?
Sure, LinkedIn is the best. You can share my LinkedIn, my email, whoever needs help on any subject, tech industry. I'm here to help, definitely for any advice. And yeah, thank you, Tanya. It was honestly a pleasure. Likewise, I also do these things for myself first because I enjoy. Sometimes talking about these things also acknowledges them for you because you don't talk about your achievements every day. And yeah, I appreciate it very much.
And I hope for you that's what you felt, because you obviously an amazing being and you have achieved very, very nice results. And from what I'm seeing, this is just the beginning. You're just getting started. So
Yeah, totally, totally just the beginning. Thank you.
absolutely, absolutely, Sal. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your evening. And yeah, from what I understand, you have meetings to attend to, so which is scheduled of a busy person. Have fun.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tanya. Catch you later. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye bye. Good evening. Bye. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being such an amazing audience today. We're gonna post all the links we mentioned with Sarah, and hope you enjoyed today. I tried to craft the questions in a very interesting way, so you could also benefit from it and see, what it takes to succeed in an international environment. And yeah, so keep learning, keep moving forward, learn English, guys. So here we go. If you guys need to continue learning, you have a link here. You can leave your contact data and make sure you continue and do your next step, right? Invest in yourself, go ahead. And English is one of the tools which is needed to prosper in international arena. Okay, thank you so much, guys. I see you next week.